is moving. Right. Okay, so I guess we're ready to start. Tonight is July 26, 2022. I'd like to call the North Stonington Board of Selectmen meeting to order. Myself, Bob Carlson, first selectman. Also here is Nicole Porter, selectwoman. Selectman Brett Mastriani, admin finance director, Christine Dias. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, is there any public comment? Is anyone online? Oh, good. All righty. Any comments by either of the two selectmen?
Sorry, just a quick question. I know we were sent the letter from the First Baptist Church inquiring about COVID ARPA funds. I just didn't, kind of lost track with where we're at. I know we were contemplating, we were concerned about setting a precedent. What have we decided on that?
So I just sent them a letter saying that all the ARPA funds at this time were spoken for. If we had some funds that came back through the demolition or through something else that we didn't, that maybe the business plan didn't spend the entire 100,000, we go look at it again. But I was worried about setting a precedent for any of the nonprofits when it came to that, religious nonprofits. So I understood where they're coming from, and I think they understood my position also, or the board's position. So I think we're okay with that for now. After the dust settles with the demolition and the business program, we'll see how much money is left in ARPA, and then we'll have to come back as a board and kind of redecide how we want to spend it. I mean, there's going to be a lot of things on the table. I mean, we're going to have a big piece of field with just grass on it when there's no building there. We'll get the library starting doing what they're doing. I've had some people inquire about a new van for the senior center, which keeps breaking down. It's from 2006, I believe. So there's other things that we can talk about as they come down, but maybe we'll have to make a list and prioritize them and decide as a board where we want to spend the money. Hopefully we have the money to spend.
Yeah.
So.
And then I just had one other thing. I went to the Conservation Commission meeting the other night, and I know, Brett, you had gone probably the month prior. And I know we had a concerned citizen about their activities, their decisions. I am understanding that we're going to either try and have a joint meeting with them, or maybe put them on the agenda for our meeting and have them come speak to it. Can I just have an update on?
Sure. So they don't meet in August.
Yeah.
So I told Bill we can look at September as a possible joint meeting, which would be fine, just so we can hear out all the different questions that we may have. And hopefully those people that are not pleased with the direction of the Conservation Committee can come to that meeting also and express their issues. So that right now we'll probably do that in September, unless September gets so, we might be having a town meeting in September, and there's other things brewing right now. So as long as we can fit it in, if not, we can do it in October. It's not a meeting that has to take place at, tomorrow type of thing. So.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
And just so you do know too, Nicole, that if they're going to do something, typically Bill will come through me. He did it when Mike was here, and he'll do it through me and say, hey, just want to let you know, when he did the historic walk in the village, he let us know as a board that he was doing that. So I'll make sure that if he comes through me and say, hey, can I do this? Or we're thinking of doing this, I'll make sure that I let you and Brett know. So we can, as selectmen, we can say whether it's something we want him to do or not.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm all set.
Brett, do you have anything this evening?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay. First selectman report correspondence. A couple of things. I've got a crew that's cleaning out the lower level of the one-story wing, a little bit behind schedules, like 2 guys. And Donnie's been here every morning opening up for them, and then kind of keeping an eye on things, and then he'll lock up after they go. But they've been bringing things to salvage houses and so on. We're paying them to do it. When they get all done, they're gonna then do a clean the building, not a deep clean, but, mop the floors, wipe the desks off and make it more presentable. I met with the tenants from the lower level for the early learning center. They came in and looked at the bathrooms in the one-story wing, and they might take the entire girls' room, 7 stalls, 7 toilets, 4 sinks, 1 vertical mirror. And I told them they could have that because they're spending the money for the plumbing and to get the bathrooms built. And at the end of the day, the town ends up with 2 bathrooms on the first floor of the 2-story wing, which is great for us. So that's all going pretty well for now. I sent you some information on a piece I want to give out when we have a definite demolition date, and I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to demolition. I sent you a piece I wanted you to look at that I wanted to walk by and put in all the mailboxes in the village, just so they know that what's coming up, and that way everyone knows what's going on and there's no surprises. One last thing is I got our 3rd quote back on the windows for the 1750 house. Now, at the last meeting, we voted to allow me to use this method of going out and getting specific bids from companies that give us these type of bids rather than going through a RFP process. As you'll see a little bit later in the evening when we speak about purchasing policy, we'll be looking at it, maybe doing it a different way. But for this project, I want to get the windows on order sooner instead of later. It takes about 6 weeks to come in. I'd like to get those windows in there before it gets too cold out. So we have quotes from Arnold Lumber, Riverhead, and Waterford Lumber, which is part of Coventry Lumber. It's part of their 4-store conglomeration. Of that, the lowest bid was Arnold Lumber, and they were actually about $1,800 lower than the second place bid. So with that said, they were also the company went out and did the walkthrough with me to make sure all the measurements were correct. I need to talk to Tim Brennan about one window to make sure it passes fire code in Connecticut. The one I have in there passes Rhode Island, but I think Connecticut might be slightly different than Rhode Island. So if that's the case, I'd like to get these on order. And if it's okay with the 2 of you, I'd like to get that order placed within the next week.
What's the final price?
The Arnold Lumber price was $26,078.42. I originally quoted this as $32,000 6 months ago, but we've changed some things around. And we did not decrease the value of the windows at all. There's still a really good window. Riverhead was $27,989. So that's roughly $1,800 more than Arnold's. Coventry was a little lower than Riverhead, but they figured $1,000 window off their quote. So when I add that $1,000 window back in, they're no longer the second place quote, they're the third place quote. So if it's okay with you two, I'd like to go ahead and get this on order.
I'm fine.
I'm good with it.
Great, thank you. All right.
Not to go off topic, but is everything going? Sorry, I think we're too close. Oh, that was you. Everything going okay with the tenant? Have we heard from him? Did we clean
sure.
out the oven?
Especially in the first 3 days, we got him a new stove. We're doing some odds and ends. His mom and dad were down. He took him into town hall to meet myself and Christine and
Oh.
some of the people in town hall, which is nice. I think they think he's in a good spot. He seems like a good kid. I mean, I walked in, looks like my son might be living there. Someone that's 25 years old, but I didn't expect it to look like a museum. And it doesn't look like, it looks a little, maybe 2 steps above a dorm room, but that's okay. But I think he's very respectful. He's asked me questions about, what he can put into a wall, what he can't. Does he need sticky things and versus a nail? And I've told him when he can do things and when he can't. So he's very respectful, nice young man. And I think it's going to be a good tenant for us.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Old business, demolition, 1-story, 298 Norwich Wesley Road. So as I mentioned, the demo, we sent the contract to Best Tech. And Jim called me back and says, yes, we're looking forward to doing work with you. I want to set up a pre-demo meeting, which I want to set up a pre-demolition meeting with Best Tech, with representatives from the Wheeler Library, because they're the biggest abutting neighbor that we have the most concern for, because they're running programs as we speak. I'm going to ask Wayne Coates, who's on the Permanent School Building Committee, if he could join the meeting, since he has a lot of history on that building, knows where things are. Obviously, Best Tech will be there, I'll be there, and the new clerk of the works, if we appoint one tonight, will also be there. And I'm shooting for this for maybe next Tuesday or Wednesday. Once we have a definite start date, right now it's tentative as August 15th. If we know they're starting, then I will go out through town and put these notices, the FYI notices in the mailbox that I sent you, so everyone knows what's going on. And we should be good to go. I met someone from Best Tech there today just to cross a couple of Ts and dot a couple of Is. I let them know the furnaces were going, most of the kitchen equipment's going, would all be going by the time they come back. I had some people in the fair there today taking down some light fixtures they're going to transfer over to the fairgrounds. If it's in that building, it's not doing us any good. I'd be more than happy to let somebody that can use, especially somebody from town, and that's what I've been doing, so. And I will, so we walked around today with the Best Tech rep and reminded him of things I couldn't have damaged, like the memorial, the flagpole, the 2 granite benches, the bell, things like that that are outside, so. I think it's going to go well, and hopefully we'll vote to approve one of the clerks of the works this evening and get this thing going. I'd love to be sitting here around September something and say that building's down and the tenant's in. And if we can say that, then I think we've come a long way, so. Any questions on the demolition at this point? Brett and Nicole?
I just have a quick comment. You know, the other night, I think the last meeting, we were talking about how it's going to look, and that the monument in front of the cafeteria area, the half circle, and then the entire parking lot on the right-hand side is all staying, right?
For now.
And I drove over there and I was just trying to imagine what that was going to look like with just grass eventually. And I mean, I know that I have like big plans in my head of what I would love for that area, but I do think it's going to look kind of weird, and whatever is left, I'd love to just kind of take a look at what we can do. I just, because I mean, the half circle is going to be there, and for what? I mean, I guess just continued parking for the part of the building that's not going to be.
So
That's
the
still gonna
drive,
be
you
here.
mean?
I mean, the half circle in front of the cafeteria area, which then merges with the that connector side of the parking lot that connects with the front. I just think that there's an opportunity in the future to get rid of the parking on the right.
Oh, I think there is too. So the intent is just to take the building down, grade, put loom and grass seed where the building used to be. Then I think it's easier then for everyone to walk around and take a look. Maybe we can have like a
just
day.
brainstorming.
You know, we can walk, people can walk around and have a meeting after we walk around and get some ideas. So I have heard ideas on the half circle from more than one person about making it some sort of like a memorial circle and bringing in the monuments that are in the entrances to town, the 3 entrances, and have them all in one spot, because that's where the Memorial Day Parade ends up.
Yeah.
And have all our veteran monuments in one spot. Maybe take those 2 granite benches that are on the steps and move them down into that area. So if that could become Memorial Circle or something, I would. One of the fellows, when I was working at the fair, he's a landscaper by trade. He said, plus he's an ex-Marine. He said, just let me know. I'll give you all my labor for free. I'll move everything. I'll take care of it. I'll make it look nice. And so, I mean, that means that's just a small part, but it could end up being a big part of the overall picture.
Okay.
So
I like that. Good, thanks.
Yeah, on that note, did we find out anything about how that demo will work up? Like I said, mentioned in the last meeting, sidewalks and things like that, because that building goes into those sidewalks, and with the equipment there, are those scheduled to be taken out and then grading to the parking lot? Do we know anything? And maybe Donnie would have a handle on how they'd be able to take that without affecting those
well, they're
things.
using fencing with bags, heavy bags, rather than putting them in the ground. The fencing will be up just before they start. They were looking at the Todd sidewalk that's on the real library side. They're
Right.
gonna keep everything inside of that, so nothing will be on the other side. They think, they're pretty confident. There's a couple of culverts in the parking lot. They're gonna cover those with, to keep them safe so they don't get damaged. They don't think they're gonna really damage that parking lot much, which we're not gonna be using that parking lot much, but they think it's pretty much just gonna be the footprint where the building is, and they shouldn't cause much damage other than that.
Right, so they think they can take that down without having us have to put new curbing in or anything to make that look, I just can't see using the equipment that they use with not really damaging those sidewalks and things like that. So I'd like to have a handle on that before it's all said and done, because if the equipment's there and we need to address that. it's
Well, and if there's any
always-
damage, it's in the contract they have to repair. So if they damage it, they have to repair it. If it's not part of the project, yes, and the curbing's not part of the project, neither is the parking lot, so. I just think that it's gonna be, as Nicole said, you're gonna have a grass field, a parking lot over here that means nothing, because who's parking there and where they're going? So I think once we get all that down, it's gonna be so much easier to walk around and see what the finished product might wanna look like, so.
Okay.
But I understand what you're saying, Brett, and they, will, in that pre-demo meeting, I'll make sure things I want to impress on is the memorial stuff, that nothing gets damaged there. Make sure that nothing gets damaged on the library grounds. Make sure the water system is protected through the whole thing. And and make sure that gets damaged, gets repaired, so.
And they plan on trying to keep those trees up that are right next to the building on the library side.
The big
Yeah.
trees, if they're on the library side of the sidewalk, then they won't touch them.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Any questions from the audience or from online on the demolition of the one-story wing, one-story wing? Yes, I just need you to use a microphone.
The speaker that way a little bit, so there.
Mhm. He's right there to help you. Too high.
I just had a question about the amount of money that's going to be left over from the original estimate. First of all, how much? And second of all, I have been talking with the first selectman before you and before that about some relief for people in this town who don't have a lot of money. We get $1,000 off of our income, off of our property tax, as it is now. But some of that money could be used to help people who have an income of less than $15,000 a year. If you could give them another $1,000 off. I don't think that would break the town. This group of people uses the fewest services of any people in town, and we pay for a lot of services that couldn't be provided if we didn't. I've been looking at moving now for about 3 years because the town, my taxes have more than doubled since I moved in. I have an income of about $10,000 a year, and my taxes are nearly $5,000. And we're here to help everybody else, but they won't address that issue. I was promised by the former selectman that he would look into it and set up a committee. The committee was set up as promised. They had one meeting and they dissolved. No change. And if I could, I have pneumonia right now, so I really don't want to be here. I lost my entrance to the Zoom meeting. And I couldn't find anything in the search to get to this meeting by Zoom. I find it very difficult and annoying to have to keep going through one click and then another click to find out what's going on. It could, if we want to make our government more accessible to the people, it seems to me that that could be made a lot easier. If there's going to be a meeting, open the email, there's the meeting. And a little more meat to the agenda or to the responses. What goes on in the meeting? A little meat instead of we discussed this. Well, what did you discuss?
So you're talking about in the minutes.
And that's minutes, and that's basically all I humbly request that you seriously look at the charges being made to seniors, especially who are not in the position of making these flood payments.
Understood, excuse me, understood, and I think that we could try, make another run at setting up a tax relief group with the Board of Selectmen and form a committee. I remember when that committee was formed early on, probably about 4 years ago, 4.5
Yes.
years ago.
Yes, that was according to what he promised.
Okay, well,
One meeting,
if we promise you, we'll do it. I promise you that. So,
I have a little more time.
so we'll discuss that maybe at our next meeting. We can add it to the agenda. And there's no reason why we couldn't set up some sort of a tax relief group to look at all. I remember who was on that too. I think it was John Olson and
Yes, John Olson.
Brian Rathman was on it. Sure. I think it makes sense. I can't promise you that we can use American Rescue Funds because we can't use them to pay down taxes. But there may be some other program we could set up within the town. All right,
They can use that money to surveil. That's
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Oh, no, thank you. I hope you feel better. Okay.
Bob, I just wanted to mention also, Board of Finance at one point, maybe last year, a year and a half ago, they were going to start talking about that, about senior tax breaks and locking in tax rates for seniors over a certain age. And I don't know if that moved forward, but that might be something we want to reach out to Board of Finance to see if they're going to bring that up again. It happened when I was on the Board of Finance, and I know it came up during meetings. We were going to talk about it, and there was a subgroup working on it. They were going to find out some of the tax implications from Daryl, how that would work, because there are other towns that after a certain age, your property tax is pretty much set.
Okay, so I think you're right, Brett, and when we get to C, shared services, I have some ideas. We can incorporate that in, so, great. Thank you. Any other?
I just had a quick question. So these meetings are recorded, correct? And was going to try and quickly get on the town website, because I will be honest, I use the town website myself to know and look at the calendar every month and what meeting is on what day. When you click on it, there are a couple of clicks, but when you click on it, the links to Zoom are usually right in the agenda sometimes. But I wanted to ask Christine where on the website you can actually go,
Right
and
there.
you don't have to fool around with the minutes. You can listen to 2 hours of us talking, but understand the full conversation and not just the abbreviated minutes. So,
And there it is. That's all the meetings, including the ones going on.
So are you saying the automatic emails that you're subscribed to of all the meetings, when you get the agenda sent to you saying there's a meeting for a selectmen's meeting? Okay. All right.
No, I understand. So one advantage you have versus most of our abutting towns don't have virtual meetings anymore, hybrid meetings. We're lucky we have this room because we can set up and leave it set up. So we have Board of Ed, Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, a lot of people meeting in this room. And because we have, and then we can leave it set up, we're not jumping from auditorium to cafeteria to auditorium. It allows us to do this, but like Stonington, Ledyard, Preston, they're all in person now. And we want to make sure we can get to as many people as possible. So if we can make it easier for you, we will. Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate your input tonight. And thanks for coming out.
Bob, one last thing I think maybe we could do that might help in situations like this is in our minutes, put a link to the YouTube video of it. So when those go out or people click on it, they don't, so I do find it somewhat difficult when you do go to the YouTube site. Sometimes the way the meetings are put out there, sometimes they're all jumbled up. You can search by what.
But do you go through the town website?
Yeah, but then, so sometimes there's Board of Finance ones mixed in and you have to scroll through to find them. But if we put a link on our minutes to the actual meeting, then that's an easy way for someone to go to our minutes, click on it, and it'll take them right to that video. Should be easy enough
See,
for
I
us to
don't
do.
know enough about technology to tell you we know how to do that. But if you can tell me it's done, I don't think we can do it. But that makes sense.
I think we can do it pretty easily.
Thank you. Anybody online with a hand up? Okay. Next, speed humps. Okay, so this is going on for year 3 on this topic. I think we're about to close in on a finale. I received 1 visit and 4 phone calls on speed humps at Town Hall. Every one of them was in positive, saying, why don't we have them? I thought you did this at the last meeting. I said, well, we want to get a little more information. And they know there's a traffic committee meeting coming up tomorrow where one of our new village neighbors is going to request something else in the village. But they all want to let me know that they were positive for getting speed humps. Excuse me. I mentioned to them that there would only be, we only went out for bid for 4, and that we're all going to come back in March or April and sit on Ann Gray's front porch and discuss if the speed humps were a good move or a bad move. Should we take them out? Can we leave them in? Are there too many signs, too little signs? And at that point, we'll determine moving forward. Should we put a speed hump on Rocky Hollow? Should we put 2 on Wyosop Road? So, but here's where we are today. We put an RFP out for 4. We have a price on 4. We had promised that we would get speed humps for the villages. I said and when I said I had 4 to 5 people, I wasn't even counting Ann as one of them. She was yesterday's visit. Donnie's here today, so I'd like to put this to bed once and for all. So if we can ask any questions of Donnie or myself, any comment on how we should move forward, it'd be great.
So I just want to make a comment. So I've been visited by a few residents as well. I just want to put it out there that some people thought that I was against the speed humps because of the last meeting. I just wanted on the record that I was never against the speed bumps at that last meeting. I just wanted to make sure how we were paying from it, what budget item it was coming out of. and that it wouldn't affect the highway department budget overall. And I did have that second question of, are we basically paying the same for 4 as we would have for 8 because of minimum asphalt? And things like that. And like I said, I noticed when we put out bids for different parking lots, things like that, it comes down to the amount of asphalt and there's minimum. So sometimes 2 speed bumps might be the same as 4 or 4 as 8. So those were my 2 questions. I did get a chance to talk to Donnie since then. But if you want to mention how that would affect your budget or not affect your budget coming out of there. And just so everyone knows, yes, the speed pumps were approved in the last with the last Board of Selectmen, but there was never any money budgeted for those speed humps. They were just coming out of the highway department's fund. So when we went through our budget and we did our budget this year, we didn't put in money for speed bumps. So I just want to make sure it's not going to affect the highway department and whatever roads that he has planned to pave in our salt and things like that.
So I can't determine what the winter is going to be, obviously. So we always prepare our budgets, at least I prepare my budget and to remain fiscally responsible. I put in there a little bit of leeway for extra snowstorms or a hurricane or something that's going to be outside the realm of the normal weather patterns that we get. It's not going to affect our budget. If we have to, we can move another project back to next year if we have to. The biggest projects that we have to finish up is the developments, which is we have Old Colony left for this year, coming fiscal year, and then we have Laurelwood to be finished in the developments. As far as the speed hump material, part of the bid package was the National Traffic Safety Commission's plans. Actually was based on a Virginia state design for those speed humps. As far as just taking them out, it's going to be a little difficult because the beginning and the ends of those have to be keywayed into the roadway. In other words, the road has to be milled or cut for those to fit in to match up. So it's a good smooth transition from the roadway onto the speed hump itself. And that was part of the bid. So the material is figured by the amount of material that's based on the plans. So that didn't change. The thing that changed is obviously the price of oil. We've had in Old Colony, when we did the not Old Colony, but the developments went up $10,000 for last year's difference in the for paving. So it's based on whatever the oil price is. But it shouldn't affect us at all. And if it does, like I said, we can always move something into the next year. We usually don't start any of that stuff to the developments aren't going to start till April next year because I don't want to start a project and then all of a sudden now we get a really bad winter and we use a lot of money for sand and salt, clearing the roads and overtime and all that stuff before I do the roads. So that's why we try to do the roads, the big jobs in April, May, June.
Donnie, tell me how the plows work with the speed humps.
So looking at them, we try to base it on the same way the ones in New London are, by the train station. It's about the same thing, 0 to 3 inch height. It's a gradual transition. You level off and then you drop to the other side.
But when you're running the plow, the snow plows and the road is completely covered with snow and you're going through downtown Main Street, how do you know? I mean, how do the plows not hit the speed hump and either chip away at it, or how do you know to raise, or is there something in the plow part that senses something in the road and automatically comes up? I don't know enough about that.
So the transition again is gradual. It's not a drastic. You can't legally put speed bumps on a roadway. They have to be speed humps or speed tables. That's what we went through. It's a learning curve for myself. Speed bumps are only allowed in parking lots. They're not allowed on a road unless it was 15 miles an hour speed limit. But the National Traffic Safety Commission does not want you to put any speed bumps on a roadway. You have to go speed humps or speed tables.
So you don't see any issue with a snow plow getting over it
No,
not
because
ruining it.
that area is 25 miles an hour anyway, so I don't see a particular problem with it. And if
Okay.
they're keywayed in, there should be no problem with with them going over it.
Plus, there's plenty of signage there that the drivers will
true.
get to know
That's
where
true.
the hump is, right? So if
I
you're doing
forget
that,
about the signs.
but if you're doing that trip all the time, you know that, okay, I'm
Yeah.
getting to that spot. So if they had to bring it up a half an inch or an inch, they probably could do that.
The biggest issue with these things is that if you put one on a downgrade, and you're not gonna know, height wise, if you put them on a downgrade, you could develop a puddle which turns into ice in the winter. Other than that, it shouldn't be an issue. I think most of the spots we picked out are pretty level, and I don't think it's gonna be an issue. A lot of things go into determination where you put them. You can't put them by a driveway. They're 25 feet long. You can't put them by a drain, obviously, because you need the drain off, and you can't put them over shut-off valves for people's water. So there's a lot that determines where you put these
Right.
things. And the areas we put them was the best spots that we didn't have those issues.
So when we vote to move forward, what is the timeline, do you think?
We're ready to go. I mean, as soon as you guys give me a green light, I'll get a hold of the contractor. B&W is the contractor that got the bid. And I'll tell them we're ready to go, and hopefully they'll get out. I do not know how busy they are, but it's gonna be up to them at that point.
Could we run into another issue with getting into the cold weather
I
and
think if we hold our vote off until October, we would, but if we vote
Yeah.
now, tonight, put an
Yeah,
end to this, I think
let's-
we'd be fine.
let's just get it done? That's-
You tell me, I'm ready to go.
So this has already been approved by the previous Board of Selectmen. I'm thinking we only would have to vote, and you can correct me if you're wrong, if you want to vote, we can. I thought we only would have to vote if we wanted to overturn the previous vote. If you feel like you want to vote anyway, just to, for some reason, to clarify the issue, we can entertain a motion.
Well, I think we would vote to accept that bid, right, and move it forward.
Okay?
One last question though. So are the speed humps, are they painted at all? Are they,
Yeah, so.
are they yellow? Are they white? or-
Correct. They're gonna have, part of the bid package was that they paint them, so they'll have yellow striping at about a 30-degree angle that goes across, all the way across them on both sides. So you see that they're there. So they're gonna be yellow, they're gonna be yellow paint on every single one of these things. They'll have signs prior to them, speed hump ahead, speed hump at the center of it, and then the next speed hump would say speed hump, at the center of that. So you're looking at 3 signs, one way, 3 signs the other way.
In any, I know certain towns, like if you go through Mystic, they have a reflector in some of them. Is that,
We'll have reflective tape on the speed hump itself.
okay? And then what about your maintenance of them? Is that something that you don't
So-
foresee a big maintenance issue with them?
So
or-
the striping would have to be painted on a year, probably every other year basis, as the striping failed. The striping company we've been going with is a water-based company, is a water-based paint. I'm trying to get, actually B&W is the low state bid for our area for a latex paint. So the difference in the two is a little more money. However, you don't have to paint every 2 years or 3 years. You have to, it's good for 8 years. But it costs a little bit more money. It's more reflective. It's got the glass in it, and it would last a little bit more.
Actually, we're looking at that now, Brett, because a lot of the roads in town are very faded, especially in the village, very faded lines. So you really don't know if you're on the right side of the road or not. So that's something we're looking at now as a town.
And again, that's the water base. The water base doesn't last more than, I mean, last time, I think it went 8 months. It was faded so bad you could hardly see it. And with everything else going on with developments, I've had to put those off. Instead of doing them every 2 years, now I'm looking at maybe doing them every 3. This is probably my 3rd or 4th year since we did them last time, so they have disappeared.
So this is, I guess, on that topic, do you think you'll have that decision made before you start painting again? Striping lines,
Which decision?
to go with a different type of paint?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it makes sense to go with a latex paint versus 8 years versus 8 months.
All right. Very good.
Do you anticipate any conflict with the demolition work that would be going on at the same time that we might be putting in speed humps?
No, these are going pretty fast. They're, like I said, they're 25 feet. There's 4 of them, the 25 feet. The biggest part of this will probably be the keyway and starting the leveling on both sides. So it's gonna go from a 0 right to a 3-inch.
I meant the work, simultaneous work going on,
Should-
all of the construction for the
Should not
demolition.
bother. They have another exit they can use.
Okay.
You don't have to go out that way. And there's only one speed hump that we have designated
In that
prior
area.
to the spot.
Okay,
Okay.
That one could actually get done first. We could tell the contractor which one we want to get done first. So
What's the total?
23,000?
I just, if I make a motion, I want to,
And then we'll agree to all meet on Ann Gray's front porch sometime in April. Right,
absolutely.
Ann, and we'll sit on your front porch in April and decide whether the speed humps are a good idea or not a good idea, correct? This is after the humps go in, we're gonna sit on your front porch and watch traffic and decide whether we made a right decision, correct? Perfect. Thank you.
It's 23,000 even.
B and W was the only bid we got on that, I believe, correct?
Yes, B&W Paving and Landscaping LLC.
They were the ones who were originally going to do the first ones, and I think they bid the first ones at 2,500 apiece, and not knowing exactly what the plans were. So this one, I included the plans in the bid, and it went back out because there's no way they could have did it for that amount of money.
so then I'll make a motion to approve and award the bid to B&W for $23,000 for 4 speed bumps in the village.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. It's on the first and second. Any further discussion?
I'll have an update. Hopefully I can get a hold of Mary or Betty's their secretary and get something going tomorrow, maybe have a date for you.
Is there any comment from the audience before we vote? No? Good? Okay, then all in favor of telling Donnie to let's move forward on the speed humps and get them done as soon as we can? I'll say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. Speed humps are a go. We'll get them in as soon as we can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Donnie.
Thank you, Donnie. Okay, now we put that to bed after 3 years. Next, shared services, which we're going to leave this on because Brett had asked actually, and we as a board want to make sure that we do the best we can to get services shared with the school system. A couple of quick things. And speaking with, I had a meeting with the 4 other first selectmen that I typically meet with quarterly. We just had it this last Wednesday. I hosted it. It was my turn to host. And 2 of the 5, no, there's 5, no more than 4, there's 5. 2 of them have tri-board meetings with the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and Board of Ed. And I think that that's something we used to do when we were trying to get the school building project moved forward, but we haven't done it since. And I think Brett mentioned it before about joint meetings. They meet on a quarterly basis. They try to keep their meetings to an hour. There's no voting that takes place. It's pretty much an introductory meeting the first time, so all the board members get to know who they all are. And then after that, they meet on a quarterly basis. I was hoping, if you agree, then maybe we could have a tri-board meeting with them in September, and then early December and March, which gives us 3 meetings before the budget has to be approved, and then continue to meet with them quarterly, just so all the members know what's going on. If we met the first time on, let's say, a Monday at 6 o'clock, then at that night, with all the board members there, we can determine when future meetings would take place, what time they would take place, what day they would take place. But is there any reason why you would not want to do tri-board meetings with the Board of Finance, Board of Ed, and Board of Selectmen?
I think it's a great idea. Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that. I think it would help us, I'll be on the same page with a lot of things, especially going into budget season, and help us really look at some of the shared services we've talked about over there.
Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'll reach out to the other 2 board chairs, tell them that that's something we'd like to do, and see if we can come up with a first meeting date in September, again, probably on a Monday. Just most of us meet on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And then after that night, we can decide as a board what would make the most sense going further. I think going September, early December, before we get into holiday season, and then in March, as we're in the middle of budget season, makes sense, those 3 meetings. All right. Also, The business manager has come in a few times. He's not officially starting until next week. The new accounting, what's the title? New bookkeeper started yesterday. I met her today. She seems very nice. And I heard great reviews from having our own accountant general, Susan Pike, was on that hiring committee. I heard both from the Irma and from the superintendent that it was great having her there because she asked accounting questions that they might not have been aware of. And as it turned out, they listened to her advice because the person that was selected, Susan, had a lot of input into this particular candidate. So far, that all looks like it's working out pretty well.
Great.
I'm going to probably take the Troy, Irma, the new business manager, and the new bookkeeper, along with Christine, Susan, Ivana, and Jim, up to the winery for some afternoon for a glass of wine and just chat socially. So they get to all meet each other outside of the office and try to create that bond between the town and the Board of Ed, rather. Actually, not the Board of Ed, the central office, because Christine Wagner will not be there. It's she agreed that being there might put a damper on what Troy might want to say or what somebody else might want to say. So she will not be there, being that she's chairman of the Board of Ed, but not part of the central office. So just going to be pretty much employees.
So are all their vacant positions in the office filled now?
Yes. Yep. And from what I can see, early returns, everybody seems to be happy with the choices that were made. Any other comment? Would you like to comment on shared services, Brett?
Nope,
Okay.
good, thanks.
Nicole?
No, I'm all set.
Okay. Clerk of the Works. So Clerk of the Works, as we like to call it, Brett likes to call it, what do you like to call it? Agent, something, town?
Owners representative, but same thing.
Clerk of the Works just sounds cool, doesn't it? I've never really met a Clerk of the Works. I'm looking forward to meeting one once we apply, once we vote on one tonight. So we have two bids. We know one came in quite a bit lower than the other. I reviewed both bids. There was mistakes in both bids, just as, I think as far as just like in the more expensive bid, they said they already worked with a school building project, but they meant Stonington, and they referred to the Stonington finance person instead of the North Stonington finance person, but just a mistake. And I
Yeah,
think
but if they make that mistake on a building project, then we're all in trouble.
no, exactly. And then on STV, which is the more reasonable proposal, I think one time they referred to North Stonington as North Kingstown, but I get it because they just came off a big project with North Kingstown, Rhode Island. So it was just a slip. The gentleman that would be the rep, if we went with the Colliers, they have two people on it, like a director and like a foreman, and then the person that would do it from STV who lives in Westerly. He's got 4 decades of experience. He lives in Westerly, so he's close by. And it'd probably be an easy thing for him to handle. If you saw in both cases, there was profiles on all these people in the quotes to do this job. Before I give you my opinion, any feedback from either of the selectmen on who we should award this bid to?
I have a couple of just comments. I didn't see a lot of demolition work detailed in either one of their experiences. I mean, I think I am nowhere near a construction expert, but I'm assuming demolition is a very different project than an entire building project. I would have liked to have seen, I think it was actually Collier who mentioned something as I'm going through their entire, proposal or presentation that mentioned demolition. But I would have liked to have seen, if they're applying for a demolition job, I would have liked to have seen something in there that they've handled sites for that. Obviously, Collier came in significantly higher. I had questions about, I didn't see, what I did like about STV is that they highlighted written updates that were going to be sent to the Board of Selectmen or to you, Bob, and I liked that. I didn't, and I also saw that they would be on site. I saw, weekly, certainly they could come on site anytime, but with STV, I saw, weekly at least. I didn't specifically see Collier mention how often they would have their person on site. Obviously, my concerns with Collier is is the price, but is also anything after December 31st goes to an hourly accelerated rate, which doesn't even include those accelerated rates of pay every hour, mileage, parking, and sustenance. We're paying for their food too. And then I had a big question of what does exceeds the scope mean for Collier? They said, here's, am I allowed to say out loud the quotes for both? So, 52,700 for August 1st through December 31st. And then anything after that, or that exceeds the scope, we could be on the hook for that 4% increase in the hourly rate, which was significant, like for just the manager, $165 an hour. If we enlist the help of the director oversight, I think it's 250. So I didn't really, they never clearly defined what exceeding the scope meant, which made me a little nervous. I did like the fact that they had a lot of projects around here, the Dean's Mill, West Vine. Certainly, we could look at recommendations from those towns. Obviously, I think I don't see a big difference between the two, except the price. And I did like the fact that, not that the manager for Collier, who I think lives in Pawcatuck, but certainly the one person, Bob Gervasini, they put on is right in Westerly. So, I mean, I think for me, with my limited knowledge of construction or demolition, STV, certainly, I thought 52,000 plus just for a couple of months work to oversee was a lot of money. I was really surprised at that. Those are my comments.
And I can appreciate those comments. I think too, Nicole, that, there's a lot more buildings that get built than demoed. I think we're getting to a stage now that more buildings are getting demoed as new buildings. We see how many empty schools are around and so on. STV also had a lot of projects in Rhode Island and nearby Connecticut. So even though there's not as much experience by either company in demo, I think it's different to take something apart and dispose, especially if you have the right contractor. So if we have the right contractor, which we think we have, Best Tech, who's experienced in PCB and, asbestos and those type of removals, then really you need someone just to manage it, right? And they're not the contractor, they're just someone that the contractor reports to. So it's not me all the time. It's someone that's watching the job as I and the Board of Selectmen are doing other things. It's someone that we have eyes on it, and we're paying someone to have eyes on it. To me, $12,000 is plenty for 3 months worth of work and just keeping eyes on something, and versus 52,000, when it's almost like that we're paying them almost a contractor fee. So
Yeah, I agree.
but anyway, Brett, do you have feedback on the two?
Before Brett goes, I'm so sorry. I had one question. So STV gave the 12,000 and they even termed it the lump sum. If we were to go past, because clearly our ask was for August 1st through December 31st. If we should get in there, or if Best Tech should get in there, and we have major water problems, that delays the project, I just would want to know what STV has planned if we end up needing their services past that December 31st date, because I didn't see that specifically spelled out for
So the
them.
December 31st date was one that myself and Christine came up with, just trying to get done by the calendar year end. All the contractors, Best Tech and the other ones, all thought that once they started the project, it wouldn't take anywhere near that much time. I expect if we start on August 15th, that this thing will be done by October 31st. So we have plenty of room to deal with.
Okay,
So I don't think it's going to be an issue, to be honest with you. They don't want to be doing this in the wintertime. So,
I'm all set.
Brett?
Okay, so I agree with pretty much everything that Nicole said. I did have some concerns, like she did, over the excess rates for anything over the scope, which they could try to say, there's a lot of things over the scope, different testings. Nowhere does it talk about a lump sum, so I do like the STV quote. I read through the terms and conditions. I didn't see anything that like made me nervous. Christine, did you happen to look through the terms of service as well?
I did. I didn't see anything that was a red flag.
Okay, yeah, and I like the lump sum proposal. I also, if you look in the front page, maybe it's not the front page, a few pages, 2 pages in 3. Let's see, now I'm trying to find it. I just had it. It did say that it was the estimated time of work was August through December.
That was the time of work we put in the RFP.
Right, so they quoted in here that as estimated, they didn't put that as a hard stop on their
No, and again, don't forget, being
proposal.
the clerk of the works, it's not the contractor would say, I can't possibly do that in 4 months, or I can do it in 2 months, or it'll take me 6 months. That's the contractor. These people are gonna go by whatever we say, because they figure we've already talked to the contractor. The contract says we can get it done between August 1st and December 31st. So they're just, I think theirs is just an allotment of time. How long do our employees have to work on this project? So I think I don't think they have any idea how long the project has to take, because they really haven't seen it. They didn't do any walkthroughs like the contractors did. So I think it's pretty much, how long do we have to commit employees to this project? How long does Bob Gervasini get committed to this? And how long do the 2 people from Collier get committed to this? They're going by, I think, what we had in the RFP.
Yeah, and it does state that, their clerk of the works, and it might be in the Collier's one, yet I didn't notice it yet. Where they did say that their clerk of the works will be, he'll at least make weekly visual inspections of the work and prepare weekly reports, which I think is important. So I would be all in favor of moving a motion forward to approve STV proposal for clerk of the works of a lump sum of $12,000.
I second.
Okay, so there's been a motion to hire STV for their proposal for $12,000 to be the clerk of the works for this project of demolition of the 1-story wing. It's been seconded by Nicole Porter. Is there any further discussion?
I just wanted to make one comment. If we vote to move them forward, we do need to have obviously you'll have a conversation with them. I mean, there was definitely comments in there. I think that they believe that they're demolishing a building that has kids and staff in it. And although we will have limited staff up in the office area, it might be easier for them to know that the safety issues of having to demolish a building while kids are potentially in it, that's not our situation.
So what I hope to do is if we award this evening, which looks like we will, I want to give them a call in the morning, set up a meeting with the clerk of the works prior to the pre-demo meeting with Best Tech next week. So if you could meet me between now and the end of this week or Monday of next week, do a walkthrough with him so he has a really good idea of what's going on here, and then have him come back to the pre-demo meeting with Best Tech in the Wheeler Library, so we all have an idea what's going on. And so I think he'll be well versed on this project by the time that
Neither
happens.
one of them did a walkthrough, right? Neither one of them
No.
came on site?
No.
Okay. And where is the 12,000 coming out of? Just operational?
ARPA funds. ARPA
Oh,
money.
it's gonna
We
come out of
approved
ARPA
$1 million, so,
Okay, perfect. Yep. All right.
okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor of naming STV to be the clerk of the works for this project of demolition, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Next, 2022 Steve grant application. I'm gonna defer to Christine to speak on this.
Okay, so included in your packet was the grant application and the information that was sent out by the state. We are going into a new round of steep grants. Towns can apply for up to $500,000 of funding. It has to be for a capital-related project. You have to have your plans already together. And the deadline is August 15th. So what we would like to do is submit the last two roads. The last steep grant that we got in 2020, we used for 4 roads in Kingswood and Meadowwood, Kingswood and Cedar Ridge to do the next phase of the paving. We are up to the last phase of paving, as Donnie mentioned. It's Laurelwood and Old Colony. It's about $375,000 for those 2 roads. With the way that the pricing is right now, liquid escalation could go up when we go to actually do the project. They are encouraging a 20% municipal match as part of your application. So we would be applying for a little over $300,000 from steep funds, with the town paying the 20%. And then that would give us a little bit of leeway with the liquid escalation. The timeline for this is that the grant applications are due August 15th. They're hoping to award by September 15th. Then you have to do a contract with the state department. For us, it would be Department of Transportation for your project. That was what took a little bit more time last time for us. So what we would hope to do is do the paving in the April, May timeframe. But steep funds allow you to have 4 years to use to complete your project. So if it doesn't get done because of hangups with the state, then we would have more time. But the plan would be to do it this spring. And with only having to do a 20% match from the town, that would free up some of the money that we had planned to use. We had planned to do these roads this year no matter what. So now, if the state is paying 80% of this project, that will allow us to do some other projects that we've been talking about. We'll free up plenty of money for the speed humps, potentially to do the chatter strips on Denison Hill, and all the things that people keep asking us about. And the other good thing on the quicker timeline the state has projected for this is we'll know this fall if we're going to have this money for the spring. So that allows us to move our jigsaw pieces around however we need to. So if you guys are on board with this, then we'll send everything over to Craig Russell, our grant writer. He'll put the grant application together, and then it'll be submitted for the August 15th deadline. We just wanted to talk about it in a meeting to make sure if people are asking questions, what we're applying for steep funds, you know what the project is. This is the best plan because we already have quotes for this, and we need a project that is shovel ready. But we can talk about any other things that are steep eligible.
So some positives are, you don't have to have a 20% match, but those who do go to the top of the
Get a
list, which is
preferential,
us.
yeah.
Those that don't have shovel-ready projects don't go to the top of the list. We have them, so we go to the top. So we're in good position to get that. We've got these in the past. And I think the best thing is if we are able to get it, it covers us for overages, but also maybe frees up money, as Christine said, to take some of the other existing problems in town. We have restriping we need to do, possibly chatter strips at Denison Hill. Again, speed humps that we just put money out, we're gonna put money out for. So it just frees us up from being running so tight. And it's, it makes sense to do it. We have the money already put in the budget to take care of the matching grant. So, again, I think it was just, Christine wanted to bring it to the entire board so we know what's going on in case you're asked.
I think it's a great idea. I have 2 questions. What have we received the steep grants for in the past?
We did the water line extension with the Center for Emergency Services project, knowing that was coming along. So moving the water line up Main Street to Rocky Hollow. The current project that we have right now with the 4 roads in Kingswood and Cedar Ridge. I think there may have been a dam project in the past, but for us, it's almost always road related.
And I have a quick question that I need you to educate me on. What is the difference? But I hear us mention the LoCIP funds. Can you just tell me the difference between LoSiP and STEEP.
Yep, so LoSiP is the local capital improvement plan program money. So basically the state tells us how much we're going to get every year. It's around $50,000 that we get. And there are specific projects that you can use LoSiP funds for. You have to have a 5-year LoSiP plan that goes, in our case, to town meeting and is approved in order to use LoSiP funds for LoSiP projects. STEEP stands
Yeah,
for
small town economic
yep.
assistance.
So
program.
there are specific towns identified in the state of Connecticut who are eligible to apply for STEEP grants. They're not, it's not a guarantee year to year that there will be STEEP grants offered. I think we had the 2021, we had thought there would be a 2019 one, but there wasn't. I think there wasn't a 2018 one either. So it all depends how much the state has to offer, whether they're going to do another round of STEEP grants. And it's not guaranteed that you will get it, but I think they look at the number of towns that are eligible and the pool of money they have, divide it accordingly, and that's where they get you can apply for up to $500,000 of funding.
Have we ever applied and been denied?
I have heard that in the past, we did apply and were denied, and it was because of paperwork, but that was before I was here, so I can't speak entirely.
Thank you.
I would just, I think it's silly not to apply. I know Juliet's worked on ones in the past for different things that she talked to economic development about, just filling us in for planning and zoning. And I did think there was one that we got denied on a while back. I would like to see if we can add something to this proposal. And Bob, maybe this goes back to shared services, and maybe it's a good way to tie back into the school. At the last meeting, they mentioned redoing their blacktop area, the playground blacktop, where the kids go out and do recess if there's snow, things like that. I think there's old basketball hoops, to the right behind the generator, that they were going to use potentially some of their money from their undesignated or their non-lapsing account. I would like to see if we could talk to them, and if that's something they are really moving forward with, that we put this in here as a request as well. If they're gonna contribute, why not try to get them 80% along with us? If we have 300 in now, and that's a plan that they're moving forward with, and it's asphalt related. I know it doesn't matter that it's asphalt related, but it kind of fits in here. I think it's silly not to try to put this in here to get some reimbursement back.
Do we think they have a quote and ready to go?
I don't believe, listening to that meeting, they have the quote yet. They wanted to talk to the town to see if, they're not experts in asphalt. So they wanted to talk to the town and maybe Donnie. And I don't know if they reached out to you, but
Yeah,
that
so-
was discussed at that last
So
meeting. that I
Christine
listened
reached
to.
out to me and I already spoke to Donnie, and myself with Donnie going over there. He's gonna have, who's the guy that does the roads? Is it Pastiak? What's the name of it? Pastiak is gonna look at doing a quote for us. They're gonna put a double gate in there anyway, because they have to get a truck, an oil truck in there. And I had talked to Pam Patemery a long time ago about that would be a great place for overflow parking, when they have the art show and they have things going and people park on the grass. You could probably put 30 or 40 cars in that lot. So it makes sense to put the double gate in anyway, and then clean up the parking lot. It has to be milled down. It can't just be tarred over, we don't think. So yes, I spoke to Donnie about it, and we are gonna go look and get a price on it. If we have that price and we get it in time to put it in for the, as a project, maybe we can do it that way. If not, we might have enough money left over if we do get the steep funds to put towards the project.
Right. I would just like to maybe get them in a little more rush mode to get the quote in. So then we can get this in time. What do we have? How long do we have?
So it needs to be submitted by August 15th. So we only have about 2.5 weeks, and there's a bunch of accompanying questions that go along with it. That's why I sent you all the applications so you
Right.
could see what needs to get done. So I think we need to figure out if this is being submitted as 2 separate applications
Well, when you just put it under the same application in your, under your statement of work, you're looking at what you're, so if you do look at like the sample, they're looking at putting in community center kitchen, and then their next one, they're putting tennis courts at the recreation center. So it's different projects all on the same application.
But
And the
Christine,
target
if
date.
they're going to, so if we can come up with a quote with Donnie's help, and we know the number, and they're gonna use some of their non-lapsing account funds for it anyway, and we can help them with addition, if we get the steep grant, additional monies that we already budgeted, but now we can transfer them, couldn't we, I guess what Brett's saying, can we work with them somehow so it's not all coming out of their pocketbook because of the steep grant?
And not, I just wanted the public to know, not out of ours either. It's coming out of the state.
Right, I'm just trying to figure out how we would do it for the application purposes.
I
Because
just,
to me, they're not the same project, so I don't know how we would.
So in the statement of work, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't look like it has to be the same project. It looks like the statement of work and proposes, work and or proposes to purchase goods and services. So it gives you the listing of the different ones you're going to do in the tasks, but
What page are you on?
I'm on page 13. Or it would just fit under as a town paving. I mean, and that would be the project, and we would list that as part of paving in town. I'm just thinking if we're only proposing 3 and we can ask for up to 5, it'd be silly knowing they're gonna do that, because it's still our taxpayer dollars to try to make it work where we can get an 80% reimbursement.
Oh, yeah, I'm not opposed to it at all. I'm just trying to figure out how we're gonna have Craig do this, because you have to give like cross sections of roads and things. So that's why I think they're 2 separate projects.
is there an issue with submitting 2 separate grants?
I don't know, so we're gonna have to.
I
return
just
to
don't
state.
want it up. I mean, I don't know when the Board of Ed meets again. I just don't want it to potentially get in the way of us getting
Oh, exactly. I don't want to hold this
in on
up,
time.
but
and-
if we can list that as, like it says here, statement of work under one of the projects, then we put it in. And whether we just have to call it town paving and list the
The
2
areas to
roads
be
and
paved.
the, I don't even know what, is that a
Park-
basketball court? I mean, yeah.
Maybe a playground service, I don't know.
So, and that might be something that they can meet, have a special meeting on if they have to say, yes, do it. But if we can work with them to get a quote,
But Christine, you said we're gonna go in for a steep grant of over $300,000, correct? So it's $300,000 we don't have now. So if we can put that towards already budgeted projects, now we have extra money to use that we're gonna use for things like chatter strips and painting. If there's extra money and they're gonna pay the majority of it from their non-lapsing account, I think it's just a matter of us working with them to help them out in the project. Basically, it all comes out of the same pocketbook anyway.
Right, but Brett's saying if we ask for it from the state, then that's even more money in the pocketbook to begin with.
If we can get it in time without holding up the main.
Yeah,
right, I agree 100%. I think
Yeah.
we would need to let them know, Christine and whoever, we can figure out how that would fall into that work list. And then let the Board of Ed know, or Christine know, or the superintendent, hey, this is what we're doing, this is our deadline. If you want to get some money back potential money back from the state to do this, you got to vote on and get it
I don't think
done.
they're scheduled to meet till August 10th, though, are they? Is it August 3rd or August 10th?
the Board of Ed meeting.
Hmm. It shows that they're meeting tomorrow night, but they're not. 10th.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's no reason they can't call a special meeting if they think this is important.
So somebody needs to reach out to them to know that this is.
Well, let me talk to,
option.
myself and Christine can talk to the grant writer, Donnie again tomorrow. When we get some more information, I can reach out to Christine Wagner. But I'm not opposed to it, but I think it's a good idea. Again, Christine reached out to me last week and we already had Donnie start looking into it.
Great, so do we don't have to vote to apply for the
No.
steep grant, right? Okay.
Okay, if we're all set with that. Number 9, purchasing policy. So Christine, since you wrote this, do you want to go through this?
Okay, so included in your packet was a draft purchasing policy. The last purchasing policy that I could find record of approval was 2003. There was a proposed ordinance that I found on the computer from 2015, but that never actually went to town meeting. So this policy basically takes the best of what we're currently doing, what's written in the 2003 policy, elements of the 2015 draft policy, and what the state currently does for their organizations that don't have, if they're trying to buy something that isn't already on some sort of state bid list. So basically, anything up to $1,500 can be purchased without multiple quotations or bids. Anything between $1,500 and $10,000 you must receive 3 written quotations or bids, and anything over $10,000 needs to go out for competitive bidding for a minimum of 10 days. We would post it on the state website and the town website. But if a state contract exists for those goods or services, then the town may use that contract pricing instead of holding its own bidding process. The state already puts time, money, energy into putting their own bids out. So if we're doing something that meets the same specifications as what the state has done, it saves the town time and money to go with the state process. I added a section on purchasing used equipment because you can't necessarily put a 2009 Honda Accord out to bid because you're not going to find the same exact 2009 Honda Accord. So if we're looking to get used equipment, these are the criteria we should look. And then the professional services exemptions comes from the state as well. So I am open to any changes you all want to make to this, and then this will get signed and put in the file. So.
Thanks for working on this. I have quite a few comments. So I love the premise of it, and I do think we need something voted on in the books, because there are times confusion. And so when you look at I'll go through it briefly. So the 1,500 and lower, I understand that, but I would like the department heads or whoever does the purchasing to at least look around and see if there's better things available, even on that level. I talked to a person that used to run an equipment shop and things like that. And they always had better purchasing programs for municipalities. And now he works for a vendor of bigger equipment, lawn equipment, snow blowers, things like that. And he talks about that most vendors have something called a bid assistant program. And whoever you deal with and whoever that company is, they should. So for instance, we do a lot with Rhode Island Harvesting. I noticed when we sign all the checks, we never seem to look at pricing otherwise. I've written down some of the stuff that we buy from them, and we're not getting, they might list an MSRP and then we might get a small percentage off. But if you look around, everyone's selling at that level. We're not getting any discounts through using them. And then one thing that came up, like when the school bought, and I know that's a separate department, but they bought a snow blower and they just went out and paid full retail at Rhode Island Harvesting for that. He's telling me that most vendors have this municipal bid assistance, and it's usually about 18% back that the municipality would get right off. But wherever you buy that equipment, they usually will tell you about it and submit it so you get that 18% off. I haven't seen that on any of the stuff we signed, but I also haven't seen us buying new lawnmowers, things like that. But I think it's something that we need to look into, because at the end of the year, I would like to see how much we are spending with certain vendors, Rhode Island Harvesting being one of them. And I know they're right over the line, so it's easy to get the stuff, but there's other still dealers and places in the area that would give us a discount for being a municipality. So I'd like to look at that. I do think we might want to raise our minimum, and I looked at some other towns for bids. So $10,000 I do think might be low, because I don't think a lot of people for $10,000 bids are looking to bid those things, or they might not, it just might not be on their radar. So I notice a lot of towns have 24,999 as their high. But anything below that, there has to be 3 bids. And so what I did notice was a lot of towns have 10,000 to 2499 that the first selectman or the has to sign off, or the mayor or the town manager has to sign off on anything between that 10,000 and 2499. And the reason I say that is I think for the windows, for instance, I don't think there's a lot of companies out saying, hey, what's out on the bids for these towns of something that's $12,000 or 13. So when I did look up a lot of towns, I didn't see many with a low threshold. And I know we're a smaller town, but that doesn't mean we're not buying certain equipment that's the same. So I would like to see a little more in there, because I think it makes it more competitive. So then we can't come and say, well, we only got 1 bid for this, especially if it's an item. So it's different services I get, but if we're looking at a tractor or whatever it might be, that's above that 10,000, and you know these 4 people are dealers for that, why aren't we calling them to solicit those quotes? So that's the question on that one. And then the last one that I have is, it says contracts will be awarded to the lowest qualified bidder. Is that like QBS? So years ago, before you were here, we had someone come in that, it was actually during, Bob, you might remember, during the school building project. And the state took on this thing called QBS, which is qualifications-based selection. So it's not the lowest bid, and I know we have lowest qualified bid, but it's like a metrics that you score, and it's based on numerous factors, but that's what the state calls it. So I don't know if that's something we want to look into and put there, or just keep it as lowest qualified bid.
So I was with University of Rhode Island, so we followed the state of Rhode Island purchasing policies, and they always used lowest qualified bidder. So you could, like with the windows that Bob talked about before, they dropped out a window. Well, that would, in that system, automatically disqualify them because they did not follow the bid specs. So you want to make sure you get you're saving the taxpayers as much money as possible and getting the equipment that you are looking for. So if it's the lowest bidder, but it's the lowest bidder because they went a model down in Windows, then it's not the lowest qualified bidder. So I think lowest qualified bidder leaves it intentionally vague so that we have the ability to make sure they're meeting the specs, and we feel that this person is the lowest qualified bidder. And I think, that's the benefit of the Board of Selectmen awarding bids, so that you're reviewing them, you're looking at them, and having the discussion of, okay, well, this person bid it, but it was a different model window than we asked for. So therefore they're disqualified. They're not the lowest qualified bidder.
Okay. All right. And I wanted to look up QBS as we were talking to again, and they use that a lot for services. So maybe that's something, when I know services aren't in here. So professional services, we don't technically have to put an RFP out, or sure, but that's something that I think they came in to talk to us when it was the architecture, when we were talking about the architect and how to do all that and go through that. That was someone from the state that came in, but I know they use it. So then leaving it vague, a little more vague, lowest qualified bidder makes sense to me. But I'd like at least a discussion on the amounts in there.
So Christine, I agree with Brett on B, the 15 to 10,000. And if I would have put out a request for bid on those windows, right now the industry's so busy, they don't have time, they're not looking at those things. So if I didn't reach out to those 3 lumberyards, knowing who carries Anderson windows, who would possibly bid these and give us a good price, I wouldn't have got any bids back.
And that was a question that I had. How do they, I don't even understand the process of putting it on these sites for bid. Like, I could see if I am a construction company and I'm going to bid on a big project, but if we need to enlist, if we need to purchase a brand new highway lawnmower, how does Tractor Supply know to look on that site? I don't understand. And is that really getting the lowest person? And I mean, I know it takes work to make those phone calls and reach out to people and inquire ourselves, but I just don't understand the process of, I'm Tractor Supply. How do I even know to look on the town and the state sites to see that somebody needs a bid on a big highway lawnmower?
So we, our own, I'm just gonna use this for example, we bid our own salt. So there is a state bid list for salt and for sand, but we do our own bid, where we put it on the town site, and then we put it on the state portal. And then those vendors are signed up most of the time with the state. And so they get an alert whenever
Gotcha.
somebody
Okay.
puts, like if
Okay.
they're a salt vendor, they get an alert when someone puts out a bid for
Yeah.
salt. I think that there are going to be times like with the windows or with something else where we come and say, okay, we put our specs together. This is what we're looking for. We put it out to bid. No one responded. So we're going to
We have to go do the
this
work
instead.
ourselves. Okay.
So I think this is so that we have something firm that we can refer to for audit purposes, for transparency purposes, but there will be times where you as a board vote to deviate from the policy.
So I think the $10,000 max on that could be raised. I was looking at what the stuff that the state proposes, and they're higher numbers at the state level, which usually bigger projects, but yeah, I would propose that 1,500 to 10,000 would go up, possibly as Brett said, to 24,999 or 20,000, something bigger than it is now, because I think there's gonna be times when we're gonna want the highway garage or us or somebody to do, we start looking, we'll say for a, it's gonna be a lot more than this, but, we're looking for cautious vehicle, things like that, we know where we can go to look for, it, but if we just get the bid out there. Sometimes people get so busy. Construction companies have divisions that all they do is look at bids.
Yeah.
That's what they do. And, but smaller companies, people that give you better pricing typically don't have that kind of overhead. So, yeah, I think that's the only thing I saw. I think we should stick with lowest qualified bidder, but on B, possibly raise that to a higher number makes sense. to
Yeah,
me.
and there are towns, Bob, that do 20,000. So I'm looking up East Hampton, for instance. They actually have it's in their code, so it's right online, so you can see it. And they have a pretty good one, and theirs is 20,000. So maybe that's a good number too, because isn't that what we have to go?
To town meeting.
We have to go to a town meeting for anyway, so that might be, and I don't know if you have to put 19,999 or just, so if it's 2001, you have to go. And they actually have it, that's their program for their town and their school. So anything between that 10 and 20, their superintendent or their first selectman has to look at. One other thing that I noticed in East Hampton doesn't have, they have some exemptions, but there's a bid waiver process that certain towns have, and that's a 2/3 vote of either the town council or the selectmen to waiver from that. So at least there's something in there that says, hey, we didn't get these, or there's issues in here where a department head had a right that they couldn't get 3 bids, or they couldn't do this, so they wanted a waiver from the policy, and it required a 2/3 vote. So I think
And that's what
having
we did for the
guidelines-
windows, right?
Right,
yeah.
correct.
So do you want that to be added under section 4 procedures? I can do a C that says, waiver of this policy will be executed with 2/3 vote of the board of selectmen.
I think we should definitely
Yeah.
put it in.
And then the only other thing that, I know there's a policy about end of year purchasing. Should that be in here as well? Because it's part of purchasing. So if it's our purchasing policy, why don't we put that blurb in here? And you might, can you refresh my memory on how it goes? It's after April 1st or something, there's a
Yeah,
policy.
so it's, we can add it into this. It's just its own separate policy. That's why I didn't think it needed to be added. But April 1st is last RFPs to go out. Everything needs to be received by June 30th. We stop processing on the credit card about June 15th. And an email goes out to everybody on staff saying, don't put anything else on a credit card because it's not going to be charged on the appropriate statement to be in the right fiscal year.
And that's its own separate policy right now?
It's what, end of year purchasing policy or something like that. But if we have it under, we have a purchasing policy, then everything's all in one page or, well, 2 pages for someone to see. It's just, if it's already voted on and we have it. And then one other thing that I noticed as I'm reading these, they also have like addendums where like splitting of contracts to avoid any of these limits of this section shall be prohibited. So that's under the policies of the dollar values. I don't know if that's something that we want to have a little more.
I think if we were a larger town or organization, we would need that. As someone who does the majority of the purchasing, we don't fall under that at all. We're
Okay.
not messing with times of things. We're not, if someone comes to me and says, oh, I want to buy these 3 things, I won't say a specific thing because then it'll finger point at a person. If I want to buy these 3 things, but if I buy 2 now and 1 later, then it's going to be under, I say, no, go get quotes, go get bids.
Okay.
So-
But what if you're not here? So I have to look at it is if
The
you're not
person
here and
in my
someone.
role, it is their job to
Right.
to administer the purchasing for the town.
Because
So
I
they-
know in the past, there's been times where we paid 5,000 here and a few months later, we paid another 5,000 and then another 5,000. So we didn't have to go through that process. I also think Open Gov might have been something that was a discussion point that went against our policy back then too.
That's a software, so technically it doesn't have to go based on this. I didn't do that on purpose. This was existing from other.
But see,
people.
with software, if you have competing software companies that do the same thing now, they might not be the same thing. Why aren't we looking at
You
something
should
like that?
look at them, but you shouldn't necessarily. So if you have 3 different budget softwares and one costs $5,000, but does these things and looks
Right.
like this, and this one costs $2,000, but doesn't have the same.
It's not apples to apples.
Yeah.
Right, it's
So-
not the same
Saying.
features,
I
but as
think
long
we
as
should still have
people
to
are
do
looking.
due diligence and
Okay.
look into it and do the research. And I think changing the bid amount to 20,000 also helps with any of the 5,000 here, 5,000 there, 5,000 everywhere.
Yeah, and then the last thing that I like in this one, and it's another rule, and it depends if you guys like it or not, but consulting services shall be acquired through a request for proposal process unless a written justification is provided to the town council or Board of Education that a single source is uniquely qualified to provide the desired services. Is that something that we want to put in so we have a little more?
No, I mean,
Teeth
your
in
only
this.
exemptions are professional services, including but not limited to lawyers, architects, and engineers. Everything else should be going RFP, RFQ.
So consulting services don't fall under professional services?
In my opinion, no. I don't
Okay.
know what we do. When we did the, looking at the town structure and should we change things in offices, we put that out to bid. And that to me is consulting. I don't know
Mhm.
what other consulting things we would be doing if we're hiring a person to be a consultant, like we have our water. sewer
Well, we did that,
consultant.
right? That was a water sewer
But
and we put it out to
we put it
consult
out.
and we realized hiring them was better, but through the bid process.
Exactly.
Okay, so then I think we're covered.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll make these changes, and if there's any other changes, I'll make them. And then I'll bring it to your next meeting for approval.
So what do you think for the dollar? 20,000?
It's fine.
20.
Do you want that 10 to 20 for selectmen approval? In the,
I think so. That way a department head just doesn't order something for 18,000 without someone oversight.
yeah, it's just us.
So if we're done there, we're all set on purchasing policy. I'll come to the next meeting. Perfect. Minutes, Nicole, your specialty.
I make a motion to approve the Town of North Stonington Board of Selectmen special meeting at Wheeler Library on July 12th, 2022 at 11 a.m. as written.
Second. Here we
All-
go. All in favor?
Yes.
Yeah, aye.
Here,
Aye.
aye.
I make a motion to approve as written the Town of North Stonington Board of Selectmen special meeting at the North Stonington Education Center, July 12th, 2022 at 6 p.m.
Okay, seconded by Brett. Any discussion? If not, all in favor? Okay. Discussion?
Gotcha. No, I just, yep, no discussion.
Okay. All in favor of approving those minutes, say aye.
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 I have a quick point of order question. When we are in executive session, are there ever any minutes taken in an executive session?
Not for the content of the session, no, just when we went in, when we came out.
Okay.
basically.
Okay. We approve those?
Yep.
Okay. I make a motion to approve as written the Town of North Stonington Board of Selectmen meeting at the North Stonington Education Center and via Zoom on July 12th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m.
Okay, it's been seconded. Any discussion on those minutes?
Nope.
Okay, if none, then all those in favor of approving those minutes for July 12th at 6:30 PM, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Public comments, there's no public here. The next meeting we have scheduled for August 9th, 2022. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Can we talk about the August 9th meeting?
I'm sorry.
So the August 9th meeting is the day of the primary.
Oh, yes.
So I strongly recommend we cancel that meeting and potentially either hold a special meeting another day or just go with the second meeting in August.
My opinion would be to cancel that meeting, period. And if we feel the need to have another meeting, we'll call one. But if we don't feel one, we'll just go to the meeting that would be following that, which would be, what, the 23rd? Okay, so that would give everyone a nice little vacation. You know, if something big comes up, I'm sure we can call a meeting, get together.
Yeah, I would appreciate an email on your meeting with Best Tech and the Clerk of the Works and that whole, just to
Yeah, I
understand
can
how that
follow up
goes.
on all those meetings as they take place between now and August 15th. I'll
Thank
be
you.
glad, yeah, I try to do that anyway, so I'll do that
Yep.
for you.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, it's been a motion on the floor to adjourn. The time is 8:08. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.